When I worked in Nickelodeon's Burbank archive, I thought I'd seen every SpongeBob episode ever made. Then I found 3 unlabeled tapes. The first one was marked only with a Sharpie scratch that read Shift. I almost threw it out, but curiosity gets you in this business. I wish I hadn't pressed play. The title card came up with the usual ukulele tune, but it dragged like the tape was melting. The background wasn't blue flowers anymore, just dark water with shapes moving behind it. The words "The Lost Shift" flickered like a dying bulb. It opened on SpongeBob's pineapple. Inside, the colors were flat and heavy. He sat on the edge of his bed staring at the alarm clock that had already gone off. The usual "I'm ready" never came. He just whispered that he had to get to work before they noticed. His voice sounded like 2 recordings playing at once. He walked through his house. The camera followed a little too close behind him, like someone holding a handheld camcorder. Every few seconds you could hear bubbles popping, even though there were none on screen. At the Krusty Krab, no one was there. The grill was already sizzling by itself. SpongeBob started humming his work song, but it came out off key and slower, like he was forcing it. He flipped invisible patties, talking to himself about orders that didn't exist. Then he froze and looked right into the camera for a solid 5 seconds. Static crackled under the audio. The next cut showed him scrubbing the counter. Every time he wiped, the rag came up darker, first gray, then red. He didn't notice. He just kept repeating, "Gotta keep it clean for the customers." But the restaurant was empty. Lights dimmed, sign outside flickering. The sign didn't say Krusty Krab anymore. The letters had slid around so it read Burst Crab. For a few seconds the screen went black, and faintly, you could hear Squidward's laugh slowed down until it was almost a growl. When the picture returned, SpongeBob was at the grill again, but a second SpongeBob stood behind him. Same uniform, same hat, but no holes in his body, just smooth yellow skin and black circles where the eyes should be. The real SpongeBob didn't turn around at first. He just said he couldn't miss another shift, that Mr. Krabs gets angry when he leaves. The double stepped closer, every time the screen flickered, until it was right beside him. The grill hissed louder, almost drowning the sound of both of them breathing in sync. Then the fake one picked up a spatula and pressed it against the grill. There was a short squeal, metal, not voice, and the picture broke apart in static. When it came back, SpongeBob was standing alone. Or maybe it was the other one now. His eyes were black like burnt holes. He said the customers were finally here. The camera pulled back, and you could see shadows sitting at the tables, blurry shapes with cartoon outlines melting down the seats. One of them looked like Mr. Krabs, but his shell kept sliding off his body like wet clay. SpongeBob kept serving patties that hissed even when he put them on plates. He laughed that too wide SpongeBob laugh, but it slowed and deepened, until it sounded like the grill itself was laughing. The image dimmed, and the last thing on screen was him turning toward the viewer, mouthing words the microphone barely picked up. "Clock in. Forever." Then nothing. The tape just ended. I tried to tell my supervisor, but he said the file didn't exist in the database. A day later, the entire shelf I found it on was gone, like it had never been there. Sometimes when the reruns air late at night, the colors flicker for a split second. If you pause at just the right frame, you'll see the Krusty Krab empty, but there's always one SpongeBob still working behind the counter. He's not smiling anymore. He's just staring at the camera, waiting for someone else to punch in. After watching the first tape, I told myself I'd never touch another unlabeled reel again. But a week later, when I came back to the archive, there it was, another black VHS, lying in the same empty spot on the shelf. Someone had written "Smile" on the spine in bright blue marker, the same color Nickelodeon used for SpongeBob promos. I told myself it was a coincidence. I told myself I'd just check the footage, make sure it wasn't a duplicate, and move on. I told myself a lot of things I didn't believe. This one didn't even have a title card. It started with SpongeBob walking down a dark version of Conch Street. The houses were boarded up, the sand gray, the water around him cloudy and full of dust. He was humming a tune, not the show's theme, but something slower, like an underwater lullaby. He stopped in front of his pineapple. The door was missing. Inside, the furniture was rearranged wrong. The couch upside down, the TV on the ceiling, the walls covered in what looked like pictures of SpongeBob's own face. Each one had the same huge smile, but the eyes were just scribbled black dots. He stared at one picture for a long time, whispering like he was rehearsing something. Then the camera glitched, and his reflection in the glass started smiling wider than he was. The reflection's teeth were perfect, white, and far too human. SpongeBob blinked, and the reflection didn't. It just kept grinning. The sound warped again, and suddenly SpongeBob was back at the Krusty Krab. This time it was full of customers, hundreds of them, but all in complete silence. No talking, no movement, just sitting. Each had that same huge grin. The laugh track started playing randomly, like the episode was trying to remember how it was supposed to sound. SpongeBob waved and asked if anyone was ready to order, but his voice echoed like he was underwater for real. Then every customer turned their head at once. They smiled, all the exact same way. For a few seconds, the camera zoomed in on one fish's mouth, and the frame froze just long enough for you to see that the teeth were actually shaped like Krabby Patties. The fryer hissed again, always that same sound, and SpongeBob started flipping patties even though none were there. He said something about needing to keep everyone happy, and the longer he talked, the more his face started stretching. His mouth grew wider with every word, until it took up most of his body. You could see his tongue twitching inside. Cartoon, but somehow still wrong. The static hit again, hard enough to warp the screen into green lines. When it cleared, he was standing in front of the camera. His mouth was back to normal, but his smile didn't move with the rest of his face. It was stuck, like it had been drawn on too thick. His voice came through flat now, almost mechanical, as he said that happiness was part of the job. Behind him, you could see all those smiling customers melting into the walls. The colors of their bodies ran together, until everything looked like an oil painting that had been left in the rain. And through it all, SpongeBob just kept saying the same thing, like a chant. Smile, smile, smile. He reached toward the camera and placed his hand on the lens. For a second, his sleeve fell back, and the hand wasn't a sponge hand anymore. It was human, pale, real fingers. Then the feed cut to black. When the tape ended, I noticed something I hadn't before. The recorder showed a timestamp in the corner, dated 2004, months after that episode Fear of a Krabby Patty first aired. There were no production records of any SpongeBob content being filmed in that time window. But the voice, the laugh, the movement, it was Tom Kenny's SpongeBob, perfectly his. I brought it to my supervisor again, but this time he didn't even look at it. He said just catalog it as B-roll. I tried to protest, and he said, "You really want to lose your smile over a cartoon?" When I went back the next day, the tape was gone. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I left the TV on for background noise, and a SpongeBob rerun came on, one of the older ones. Everything seemed normal, until SpongeBob looked straight into the camera and smiled just a little longer than usual. Not creepy, not obvious, just long enough for me to notice. Then the screen flickered. For a single frame, the background turned gray, the laughter cut out, and SpongeBob's smile stretched across his entire face. The TV turned itself off. I don't know if I fell asleep after that, but sometimes when the room is quiet, I swear I can hear faint bubbling from the walls. If I listen long enough, it sounds like laughing, and if I listen even longer, I hear my own voice saying the same thing over and over. Smile.